if someone, just any member of the public, put a huge camera on the front of a bonnet and start driving it around, if you're a police officer and you're driving around, you see that, what you're going to think? You're going to be thinking, okay, there could be potentially offences be committed in there. You know, the vehicle being in a dangerous condition, the driver can't see outside his windscreen effectively, causing obstruction, and also that if that car should come into contact with somebody, not only is that poor individual going to get the full weight of the car, they're also going to get the full weight of potentially a huge camera mount and obviously camera itself. So you really have to sort of apply the policing element, common sense, and is there a way we can actually allow them to achieve it?
Welcome to Filmmaking Framed, your video podcast uncovering the realities of filmmaking. I'm your host, Daniel Hughes.
And I'm your host, Tom Dexter.
With us today is Steve Dixon, the ex-head of the Metropolitan Police Film Unit. Since leaving the police, Steve has started his company, Specialist Media Consultancy, which advises productions on how to liaise with the police successfully to facilitate filming in the UK. Great to have you with us, Steve.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Tom.
So, Steve, could you give us an overview of your career with the police and how you transitioned to the film unit in 2014?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, firstly, thanks very much for inviting me here today. It's a great honour, my first podcast. Probably my last, but thank you very much. I joined the Metropolitan Police in 2002. Obviously, straight in as a police officer, doing your normal training at Hendon. Obviously, I was part of a specialist team, which was out and about on the streets of London, obviously attempting to deal with disorder in certain aspects. And then in 2012, I was out and about. I was in Limehouse, and I was with a colleague. I was driving a big 27-foot long response carrier. And I remember seeing, not far from Limehouse police station, I remember seeing a TSG carrier just up ahead. And it put its blue lights on, and it turned round, and it was trying to find somebody that would try to evade them. So me and my colleague, we thought, okay, instead of going for something to eat at Limehouse, we'll assist the TSG. Goes over there to assist the TSG, and then I managed to find a TSG is obviously territorial support group. I managed to find this individual who tried to evade the other unit. I gets at my carrier, I runs off after him, I grabs him with my left hand, and as I grabbed hold of him, he turned my left hand and twisted it off. Unfortunately for me, he injured my left hand, and I thought it was just a finger break, my left wedding ring finger, but unfortunately for me, it was my tendons had snapped in my hand. The NHS, unfortunately for me, they misdiagnosed it, and my operational career was totally over after 3 operations to try to repair my hand. And the last diagnosis was many years ago now, was the fact it was the only way to get back out on the streets was to have the finger and part of my hand amputated. I decided not to do that. So that was the end of my operational career. No longer out on the streets doing the things I loved with the people that I love working with. In 2014, I get a phone call from my sergeant, who basically says that, Steve, there's a job come up at the Met Police Film Unit. Unfortunately, you can't stay at Grove Hall Base anymore. You've got to move on, because at that time I was classed as being on adjusted duties, no longer out in the streets. I can't have any public interaction. So they basically said that, obviously joining the Met Police Film Unit, I need to go to New Scotland Yard and meet up with somebody called James Waller, who was on the film unit at that particular time. I goes to New Scotland Yard, and there's me thinking to myself, well, okay, film unit. I'm going to be joining a CCTV crime investigation team. That's exactly what it is. I sits in front of James, and he basically says that we need a project manager to run the Avengers Age of Ultron shoot that we're filming going to be filming at our Hendon training base. I just went all quiet. I'm thinking, I've never even heard of the Met Police Film Unit. You know, I'm thinking I'm joining the CCTV, and now you want me to work with the likes of Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, and Chris Evans with the Avengers. I just could not believe it. And he basically said to me, "Yeah, this is what we want you to do." He says, "I'm going to be dealing with the normal filming stuff, as in normal TV film and TV productions in London, and I want you to head up the project manager for Hendon." I just had no idea really what he was talking about, or really what is expected of me. And so that was my chance. I got into the film unit, and before I knew it, I was sent over to Hendon to project manage the Avengers.
And can you talk a bit about what it was like project managing?
It was, obviously, you can appreciate, I'm a police officer. I was a police officer before I retired last year. And 1 minute I'm on the streets of London, and I'm all that training I've taken on board, and the next minute I'm project managing. I just really had to learn myself. I didn't really have the skills, apart from obviously dealing with members of the public and communicating with members of the public as effectively as possibly could, and showing empathy and things. Actually, project managing and dealing with a multi-million-pound Marvel production was a big ask, and I had a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. I had the Metropolitan Police to think about. I had the Commissioner to think about, and the reputation of Hendon Training School. And it wasn't easy, Daniel. I've got to be honest with you, but it was the best time of my life.
Is there anyone else with you on that, or you were totally the only police representative, other than obviously reporting back to James?
Yes, I mean, James obviously left me to it because obviously he was dealing with other projects that were going on. I was literally just thrust into it. I was working with the lovely Charlotte Wright and Jamie Lengill, obviously location managers, and Jamie Jones, who, as I said, I never knew anything about locations, never knew what a location manager was, and how a production works. The different departments of a production. No knowledge whatsoever. I mean, the only sort of knowledge I had with film and TV was actually watching the things on TV. It was like the actual different elements of it. It was a real challenge, but it ended up being probably the best time of my life. I learned so many new skills. I got myself a little bit of a niche in working with them. I mean, the Met Police were hugely happy with the way that it turned out. And it was just, I got the buzz. I remember going home every night. I wanted to go back to work and working with these people. I never wanted it to end. And when it did end, I felt like a huge part of my life had gone. That's what this industry really brings to you. And it was absolutely fantastic.
You caught the bug.
I definitely caught the bug. I'm not kidding you. I really did feel a little bit down after that. I felt like, because I thought that, again, my lack of knowledge was the fact that you've got a huge production like Marvel. You've got all these teams. You've got your grips, you've got your hair, you've got your makeup, you've got your Jamie Christophers. Unfortunately, as we know, Jamie Christopher's no longer around anymore. I thought they were a huge team that went from one production to the next. I didn't realise that they're all freelance and they're all working for each other, and then they'll just all go off into the distance and then start up again on another production. So it was really a real eye opener for me.
And from that, you then went, I assume, back into the regular film unit. Could you talk a bit about what that role looked like and how it differed from when you project managed? So what you did kind of day to day in the film unit?
Obviously, when we filmed the Avengers: Age of Ultron, it was in a private location, locked-off location, which is totally different to working in a public place location. So that was the transition for me, was that I back into the office. Thankfully, because I did a good job at with the Avengers: Age of Ultron shoot, I was invited to actually take on a full-time position at the film unit, even though technically it should only have been one PC, because that's what the unit was only available to have. So they kept me on board, which was good, and I fought for my place. But it was really difficult because, again, I had no training. The Met Police doesn't give anyone any training on filming, the industry, and how to deal with the actual industry itself and the different departments, and how to apply what they want to do in a public place. So you are really just listening to what they want to do and then you're putting a common sense approach, and you're policing head on to think, can they do that? Can't they do that? If they can, how do we do it?
So how do you kind of evaluate that criteria of balancing the need for public safety with facilitating filming?
Public safety as a police officer is everything. That's what you join up for. First and foremost, you're a police officer, and there's obviously the law to contend with, the legal side of it. So you had to balance it out completely. If a production come to us and said that, listen, they want to film on a road, a live road with a hero car, and there's a camera mounted on the bonnet, you're looking to what you need to do, Damien and Tom, is you need to put your policing head on first. You think to yourself, okay, would if someone, just any member of the public, put a huge camera on the front of a bonnet and start driving it around, if you're a police officer and you're driving around, you see that, what you're going to think? You're going to be thinking, okay, there could be potentially offences be committed in there. A vehicle being in a dangerous condition, the driver can't see outside his windscreen effectively, causing obstruction, and also that if that car should come into contact with somebody, not only is that poor individual going to get the full weight of the car, they're also going to get the full weight of potentially a huge camera mount and obviously camera itself. So you really have to sort of apply the policing element, common sense, and is there a way we can actually allow them to achieve it?
Presumably, it can also distract other drivers if they're also using the same road at the same time, and that's a risk for them causing accidents.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, there's so many different elements when you're filming on the move in those sort of examples. You got your camera mount, bonnet mounts, you got your side mounts. You got pod cars, you got Russian arms. Ukraines, I should say.
Can you define pod cars and Ukraines for the public?
Oh, yep, certainly. A pod car is where they've an actual hero vehicle. Say, for instance, you could have a BMW or a Ford car, whatever. The actual person driving the car is sitting behind the wheel, and that could be an actor, obviously driving it, and it's going to be performing some sort of stunty maneuver. Because the actor isn't a position driver, then what you'll have is you'd have this pod, which could be like a cage, like a roll cage. It could be on top of the vehicle, or it could be to the left or right of the vehicle, out of shot of the POV of the actual movie itself or TV what you're watching, and the person in the pod is actually physically driving the car. So you can imagine you can't have a pod car and take it out and do some shopping, going to a local shop and getting your pod car and drive around, because the vehicles are not designed to be on an open road in normal traffic. So you have to have control with those sort of things. Okay. When I was in the Met Police, we used to look at those examples, where have you got this pod car, and come up with a viable plan to try to make it happen. We never ever went down the path of saying, no, you can't do that. We was very, very can do. We're a team of enablers and trying to make these sort of things happen. A Ukraine, which is called now, formerly called a Russian arm, is a very high performance motor vehicle. It's got a telescopic arm on the roof of the vehicle, which can do 360s. It can go up and down. The camera on the end is on a stabilized or a gimbal, and it can go up and down and low. And they are very, very popular inside closed sets as well as on open roads. And the Met Police and other police services across the UK will support that with a police presence.
From our experience, and I'm sure for lots of people's experience, film crews can generally ask for the world because they've got a vision and they want to achieve it. How do you balance what they're trying to achieve with that public safety? And I guess the question is, how are you interacting with the film team to make sure you achieve that? So
we get an application comes through, and you're right, Tom. I mean, they want the world, And the thing that you need to think about is if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Okay, you've got to weigh that up. So a particular scene, say for instance, a production will come to us. When I was back in, I keep saying us, but we was in the Met Police film unit. We want to film a stabbing scene. We found a location. It's this estate that we actually want to achieve this shot. We take that on board first of all. And then you've got to look at the impact of where they want to do that. The actual location itself, is it fit for purpose? doing intelligence checks on that location. Because the last thing that we want, because obviously the production are not going to know this, the last thing that we want is a production to go to and be sent to a location where somebody has actually lost their life or been injured with a knife or a gun. And we would feed that back. And if the actual location was going to cause community tensions or upset to families, etc., we would feed that back to the production and say, listen, it's not going to work for these particular reasons, and obviously feed that back to the local authority or the landowners. And 9 times out of 10, say 9 times out of 10, every time the production would listen to what we say, listen, okay, Steve, that's fine. We have to find another location. So it's the Met Police filming it are trying their utmost to try to make all filming happen, and they would look at all applications. But first and foremost, public safety, public perception, community tensions, etc., are on their forefront of their mind, and we have to weigh up the two. As I said, if there's a scenario where we think to ourselves it's going to be going to cause huge problems, then we would advise that to the production, and they would always listen to what we've got to say.
How do you communicate with those communities? I'm thinking of an example. There was a show I worked on that had full permissions to shoot on this particular estate, but the estate had a lot of filming there because it was visually quite interesting. And so during the filming, some of the local residents shot fireworks off at the production crews to kind of, I guess, deter them or show their frustrations. And that production definitely had all the permissions, and they'd spoken to all of the neighbors and done everything a professional production would do. How would you... I suppose there's not a way you can avoid that because people are people, but what is your approach to talking to those communities, and how do you work with the film crews when they're talking to the communities to make sure generally those can be avoided?
As you know, Tom, it's a good question. And as you know, before you source a location, you scout a location, and obviously part of the basic process is obviously doing your consultation with the local authority and the local residents there. Letter dropping, being 100% transparent is really what you want to do. You know, your times of the day are hugely impactful as well. Members of the public, can they get in? Can they get out? Obviously, in a closed set, whatever. And obviously, you're not going to please everybody. You know, you do your letter drops, you do your consultation, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get hardly anybody that's going to complain. Maybe 1 or 2 concerns, but then you're always going to get 1 or 2 people that are going to cause problems. And obviously, as you said, shooting fireworks. Was the police called on that? Because they should have been, because you can't. Yeah, exactly. Well, fantastic, which is good.
I think they were on site. They had.
Oh, right. Okay. So you had the police there, but you're not going to please everybody. It is difficult. It's that fine line. At the end of the day, a production have got a right to be there. And if you've got a right to be there, if there are members of the public that are not happy with what's going on, it's if there are police on location, it's the police officers that are on location for public reassurance is really what the Met Police filming is all about. Is providing that reassurance, are trained in a way, which they should be, to communicate members of the public to say, listen, this is a film set. It's not real life. I know that they're obviously at the moment you're upset by what's going on, but by setting off fireworks or being anti towards it is not going to help, and obviously try to diffuse the situation as best they possibly can. So, so both parties can continue their work.
And obviously you've worked on some massive productions. Like you facilitated Spectre, Mission Impossible, Age of Ultron, as you say. Would you be able to go into some detail into some specific challenges you faced on those kind of mega productions?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Spectre was, obviously, as we know, James Bond, massive movie, loads of consultation. I mean, we're talking 7 to 8 months possibly before principal photography obviously starts going ahead, is that they'll get in touch with the locations team as to what they want to do and when they want to do it. Westminster Bridge. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, the scene with the helicopter with the Westminster Bridge. Now, as I'm sure you remember, the actual scene itself, as a part of that was actually they built the actual bridge in a studio. I can't remember which studio it was, but they built that bridge in a studio. But they did the actual filming itself on the bridge itself. and obviously closed it off at either end, and it's a night shoot. They had guns on the bridge. We had military, we had police officers. Massive shoots, and obviously there's a lot of control that needs to be done. You've got the river traffic as well as obviously the traffic at the side as well. So that was a big old shoot. The Spectre, Mission Impossibles. Tom Cruise and the team there is always up for doing as much as he possibly can. Multi-agency approaches to their filming. The last Mission Impossible was where Tom was running across Blackfriars roof across the bridge where the train station is always sets in my mind, and it's having the police, Met Police, and the City of London Police and the local authorities allowing that to happen. Helicopters at low flying, obviously for Tom. And having the PLA, which is the Port London Authority, the CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority, all on side. It's very easy for the likes of the police and the local authorities to say no, but we don't want to do that. We want, filming. We want filming to go ahead.
And can you talk about what the benefits of filming are for the police, for London,
For London, and obviously it's the fact of what it brings to London and showcases what a fantastic capital city that we have. There's so much to offer, so many different cultures, so many different the diverse sort of capital that we live in. There's a lot to offer. Because the Met Police have a film unit. It's Damien, it's the only film unit in the UK. There's no other film unit, police film unit, that's here in the UK to assist film and TV productions. There's a couple of police officers there now that are very film friendly. They want to take on applications. They want people to contact them. Whether you're a small student budget production, short film, to a multi-million pound production, it's those calls need to come in, and obviously they're willing to take them on to put them to another level. The police don't do the actual road management of the closures. That's all done by the local authority, and different local authorities have different lead-in times. As an example, if you want to close a road in Westminster, you're looking at 12 weeks. So there's a lot of lead-in time. It does sometimes throw productions out. I'm sure you know that, chaps, when it comes to the ambitious sort of side of things and the creatives, what they want. I want this bridge. I want to close it, and you've got like 2 weeks to shoot time. It's not going to happen. Whereas other locations, so for instance in Newham, they have a much shorter lead-in time, around about 3 weeks. But from the police perspective, is that's already done. We would advise, and the police would advise the production on what they can do and what they can't do, but the police won't manage the actual closure itself.
But I can say, from liaising with the boroughs, one of the first questions you get when you're asking, can we close the road, is Steve okay with this? Or have the film unit said okay with this? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, great, send us that in an email. So you email and you guys, yeah, go, that's cool. So even if it's not managed by it, it's still very much as a necessary step in facilitating it.
Absolutely. It's that collaboration of different authorities in coming together. The application for productions to get in touch with local authorities, say for instance the Film Office, an online process, they will put on there exactly what they want to do and when they want to do it, and that can filter through to the Met. Well, it does filter through to the Met Police. We look at it, we put our stamp on it, and we advise on it. I keep saying we, obviously when I was in the police. So it's having that the teams of people coming together, all discussing what they want to do and coming up with a viable plan.
What are the scenarios that would require a police presence?
Okay, the police won't supervise a shoot, and we have to be very, very careful. Is that the responsibility starts going on the onus of the police, and that's not really what we're there for.
Understood.
But there are quite a few scenarios where the Metropolitan Police and really other police services across the UK should deploy police on location. And they are when productions have got supporting artists dressed as police officers, And then we've got emergency or replica action police vehicles, blue lights, where we've got firearms, replica firearms, realistic imitation firearms, or practical firearms, which is a real firearm, which are used quite often. When we've got scenes of violence, when we've got weapons, you have a knife on location. When you've got scenes of nudity or perceived nudity, when you're filming on the move, crime scenes are another one. Special effects, when you've got things like this, and anything else really where a production might think that the police might get involved. But the thing is, Damien and Tom, is that those scenarios really are if it's in a public place and it's being overlooked by members of the public. But that can also be a private location as well. So you have to be very, very careful and always think outside the box as a location manager.
Yeah. Is it the regular police officers that get deployed for that? They're not, because you haven't got a big force in the
No,
film
I mean,
unit.
obviously the Metropolitan Police is the biggest police service in the UK. Obviously got the most resources. The film unit is part of the biggest command inside the Metropolitan Police, which is the Roads and Transport Policing Command. Over 2,500 police officers alone just in that command. Now, RTPC, Roads and Transport Policing Command, they work very closely with Transport for London, and they are predominantly like a traffic unit, the old traffic units. So the film unit sits nicely in with that sort of sector of policing, as in transport, traffic. So the actual film unit itself is part of the RTPC, and those police officers that we deploy on location for public reassurance are all given up their own time. So we never ever take police officers from normal core duties. They wouldn't obviously sit well with members of the public, and at the end of the day, is that obviously the service is chargeable to a production, and sending a normal police officer on location that's already on duty is not something that the police take on. But really, police services, all police services across the UK should have the same sort of element.
Can I ask why? Maybe it's just a demand thing that other police forces like Thames Valley or whatever it is don't have their own film units.
Good question, Tom. I wish that was the case. There is, to be honest with you, there's only around about 4 or 5 police film services across the world. So really, we're lucky to have the Met Police film in that sort of respect. But the other police services don't have the resources. The county forces, you mentioned Thames Valley, you got Bedfordshire, you got Hampshire. They don't have the resources like the Metropolitan Police. They don't have the training. They don't have the knowledge. I mean, I didn't have the training. I didn't have the knowledge until I joined, and it takes many, many years to get to a point of where you think, light bulb effect, now this is clicked. I'm sort of getting to understand you guys and how to deal with you sort of people. So, a location manager contacting Thames Valley and saying that I'm filming with a hero car, which is like hero car. What do you mean by hero car? That sort of terminology with a bonnet mounted camera on a 3 suction cup head. You're just going to get nothing with that, which is a real shame. But I was saying to Damien is that the Metropolitan Police, before I left, set up a knowledge hub to try to assist other police services across the UK to try to get on board and try to take these sort of things seriously, because it's serious, and it can be quite dangerous if the police don't take it on board and actually look at these inquiries.
That's really great to hear, because there's a huge push in the industry internally to get content shot out of London.
Yes.
Most of the industry is based in London because it's where all the production houses are, post houses are. A lot of it's based here. So there's a huge push to get stuff shot in Manchester, up in Scotland, in Yorkshire, and various places. So there will be more and more demand, hopefully, all things going well, for these police units to have that knowledge.
Well, exactly. I mean, the law is the law, isn't it? What the Met Police film unit say in London, to say, for instance, as an example, we've got a closed road, and the production want to drive a prototype type sort of vehicle on the closed road. Well, a closed road, the Road Traffic Act still applies, and what I mean by that is that the car needs to be taxed, needs to be insured, it needs to be type approved, and a prototype doesn't have any of that. So this is where the Met Police Film Unit would do everything they possibly can to try to facilitate filming. But if they come up with a hurdle like that, say for instance, as a huge movie a couple of years ago that had the same sort of thing, their vehicle was being built in Los Angeles and it wasn't fit for purpose on the streets of London. We have to advise, this is what you need to do to get that vehicle on that road. When they're not being difficult, they're trying to keep a fine balance between the law and safety. They couldn't comply, as in the production couldn't comply, so they went to Scotland. They got in touch with Police Scotland. Police Scotland allowed them to film with this prototype vehicle in a closed road environment, and unfortunately, there was an accident with the stunt vehicles. I mean, obviously, no one was hurt, but it could have easily have ended tragically or with injury. And this is what you got to think about. You know, there's you got to really think outside the box. And you know, with regards to certain elements, is that if it's not lawful, then you have to come up with another way. And this is what we used to advise productions.
Yes,
and that applies to across the UK.
It's very interesting because there are the creative departments in the film, the directors, cinematographers, whatever, that really just want to get these amazing scenes, amazing shots. And that's why there's the internal conflict there, good conflict, whether you've got the production, producers, location managers, location department, who are trying to achieve those, but also thinking about safety and the ADs. And you have risk assessments, you have insurance, you know, and you do everything you can to mitigate danger, because at the end of the day, we're making films, we're making TV shows, and it's not worth losing lives for that.
There is safety is paramount. You know, safety of the crew, safety of members of the public are paramount. It's as simple as that. There's nothing. There's no movie, no TV show that will ever go above that. Not so long ago, I managed to meet Mrs. Milsom, obviously Mark Milsom's wife, at a health and safety meeting. And obviously, that's a tragic story that happened to her husband. And we don't want those sort of things going on.
Can you explain that to the audience if they're not aware?
Basically, this was in Africa, I think it was. I think it was filmed in Ghana, if I've got that right. I'm not 100% sure. But it was a stunt vehicle that went horribly wrong, and Mark was in the wrong position at the wrong time. They just didn't, as a production, look at the health and safety sort of aspects of it. And he was... the actual stunt actually took his life, and it was all preventable. And what Mrs. Milsom has had to gone through over those years in trying to get accountability is still ongoing, and then obviously it's that sort of closure. And there is a charity, obviously for the Mark Milsom charity. I'm sure if you're aware of it, is trying to promote productions, not just in the UK but across the world, is to promote health and safety. We as I said, the film and TV industry is huge. It's a fantastic industry with great people. The last thing we want is productions to cut corners, and it's very easy to cut corners. And I've seen quite a few corners that have attempted to be cut, and you just can't do it because it's going to come back and it's going to bite people on the backside.
Yeah, it's a tension that's always there of time and money and what they're trying to achieve, and that's where the corners get cut, because they're like, oh, we could save a bit of money here or save a bit of time here, and it's not worth it.
Exactly, and it's even worse, Tom. Sometimes when it happens, you know, you'd have a set locations team. You've got your locations sorted. You've got the local authorities are all on side. They know exactly what you're doing, and on the actual day itself, the production will have creative suicide, where they say, okay, this side of the street's nice, but the other side of the street is better. And I want now, which has happened over a good few years ago, when student production, that same example, it was a student production that was being run by people that are experienced in the actual industry, first ADs and directors and producers that were taking these people on board. They saw a street, they had the permissions to do it. The experienced people said, we like the other side of the street. They didn't have any permissions to there, but they decided to send up students up lamp posts and start messing around with street lamps and things like this. And for what exactly? You know, it's just crazy. You just, you know, the industry needs to learn that there are set parameters, and if you're given permissions by the local authority, police, to film at that location, then that's what you're doing. We shouldn't be having these scenarios in this day and age now.
Yeah, I want to, for people listening to this, just a couple of, I guess, public service announcements. If you're an aspiring producer, because we're aiming this at young people, if you're an aspiring producer, the health and safety, the buck lies with you. So regardless whether your DOP or location team or whatever it is has said, yeah, absolutely, we can do this, I've done it before, the buck lies with you. Make sure you have those risk assessments done, the health and safety checked. It's very easy in the film industry to just go with it because it's all kind of chaotic and like you say, a lot of freelancers are just coming in for the day or for a week, and you just kind of go with it because you've been told to do it. But always have that health and safety in your mind. Like I say, if you're an aspiring producer, the buck lies with you, so you will be prosecuted. Exactly. And people have gone to jail or had massive fines as a result of health and safety breaches. And similarly, if you're a runner and you're starting out in the industry and you feel that something is unsafe, don't do it. Like, check with your bosses for sure, and if you're not comfortable, or they haven't given you assurance that it's safe, or again, just don't do it because it's not your worth, your life.
And you may be feeling, okay, I've got to do this because otherwise I won't work with these people again. Good, like, and it might, like, you might be, and then you have to work harder to get a different step up. But this is an amazing industry, and it's an industry where there's a lot of people can be incredibly successful. And that's true unless you get hurt in a way that you can't recover from. So prioritize that safety first.
Peer pressure, there's a lot of it. And you're right what you're saying. The people that are coming into the industry, they'll be told what to do. They want to impress. Go over there, stop that car, do this, do that. It's you just can't do it. You need a broad set of shoulders in this industry from the very, very get-go. You really, really do. And don't be bullied into do anything you don't feel comfortable, because it will come back and it will bite you on the backside.
I helped a friend on a student production once. So I had a van, so we used the van, and small enough so all the camera kit was on one. And the DOP went, okay, so yeah, we're going to close this road. It's on a bend. Don't worry about it. I'm going to have the runners put high vis on, and they'll stand on each side of the road, and it's 30 mile per hour road. It'll be fine. We'll just put the camera. And I went, nope, you're not doing that. And he went, oh, no, we will. It'll be fine. I was like, van is locked. You're not getting your camera kit until you've decided that shot's not happening. And I will just drive away with your camera kit if needed, because you risk getting someone killed doing that. And so after some bluster of 5 minutes, he decided that shot was not essential, and they were able to carry on filming. But
no, exactly.
If you're a runner or a location marshal, you're not actually allowed to stop traffic. That's a specialist, trained skill where you bring people in.
You're just not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
As I said, there are traffic management personnel that have to go through certain training to achieve that qualification. And from a police perspective, if I'm dressed in plain clothes now. If I was still a police officer, I couldn't stop traffic. You have to be in uniform to do it. So they're actually breaking the law by doing these sort of things. But it's just crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, people that are coming into this industry, if your first AD or second AD tells you to step in the road and stop a car or a pedal cyclist, don't do it.
I mean, one thing you can do is you can stand on the side of the road on the pavement where it's safe, and you can have a radio, and you can say there is a car coming.
Yeah,
that's okay, presuming you're not causing any other safety or health safety risks.
Totally different scenario in that sort of respect there, Tom, isn't it? This is it. You're on the side of the road and you're communicating effectively. Okay, guys, just to let you know that we've got a car approaching.
Yeah.
Then you're doing your job, and then obviously in that scenario, you're on the radio, and the first AD says, like, okay, can you go into the road and stop that car? We've got this shot. We've got another 30 seconds. Then, just think about really what you're doing. Not only you're putting yourself in danger, but you're also breaking the law by doing so. And it's going to come back, and it's going to...
And also, the odds are they'll just do another take. The first AD probably won't be that annoyed with you. He might go, oh, it's really annoying. A car's just gone through the shot. But then they'll just do another take. And so you would have put yourself in risk for something that probably wouldn't have been that big a deal.
There is no scenario big enough to warrant putting yourself and others in danger for filming TV or anything, really.
And it's the same thing. It's the balance that you get good at as you're in the industry is working out how you can facilitate the production without breaking the law. And for example, one is you get asked a lot to stop people walking into shot. So if you're filming in a public place, public have right of way to go through. You've licensed to film there, but you haven't licensed to close it. unless you've got permission. But even then, if you close the road, you're closing it to vehicles. You're not closing it to pedestrians, for example. And so you can say to people, "Hey, do you mind if I stop you just there?" Or "How you doing?" And you can have a conversation with them, and that effectively facilitates them not walking into shot. But you're not allowed to command them and say, "You can't go that way,"
or grab them.
Yeah.
Especially some over enthusiastic people might just like forcefully.
And that's the thing. Runners will be like, "Oh no, but they're not allowed through." It's like, no. We don't want them to go through. We are allowed to film. We are not allowed to stop. So you have to get creative about how you go. "Oh, just 1 second. I just wanted to ask you. That'd be, if you could, I'd so appreciate it. That would be amazing. Thank you so much." And learning those kind of ways where it's like, as Tom says, okay, you're filming in a stretch. You want to film on a stretch of road. You want characters walking along the pavement, and you don't want any cars. Sending runners up the road in both directions so you can radio through and going, "Okay, we've got a gap, no cars. We go for the take." You can get that. You haven't broken the law. You try and put someone on the road to wave down traffic. You have.
It's effective communication. It's as simple as that. I mean, you get the most from people with effective communication. That's going back to the police sort of side of things as well. There's another side of things called the Batarist box. I don't know if you've heard that. My behaviour affects your behaviour. So if I go to a scenario, I could go to a domestic, and I'll go in there, and I've already got the ump already over something. I'll go in there, and I'm up this level. Then they're going to start at that level, and then you have to up that level. And before you know it, you're rolling around on the floor. You don't want that. You need to go in with a level which is going to be communicated effectively. They then stay at that level. If they start going up a little bit, then you can maybe raise it a little bit and bring them down. And, I was always a good effective communicator. I mean, I used to come across some really nasty people that really wanted to knock my head off. And in the end of it, I could have a conversation with them and end up being like my best mate. And we're talking about certain aspects of life. And it's to have that effectively. But it stems from above. As a production, it all comes from the heads of department, the HODs. I always used to say that regardless of whether police are on location or not, depending on the scenario, is that a production, before they start filming on location, is to have a briefing with everyone around as to what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it. As in, you will not stop members of the public. If you do, this is what you need to say and that sort of thing. And it goes like, we've had scenarios where security, security companies that are working on behalf of production, they're not given proper briefings. So as you say, Tom, you might have a member of the public with their mobile phone out and they're filming, and then before you know it, you can't film. Well, yes, they can. And then no, you can't. And then they grab the phone and then they start manhandling their mobile phone. You can't do all that. And that will only, you would only get away from those scenarios, as I said, if as a collective production, a unit, you respect the location, you respect members of the public, and you have an effective briefing before filming starts, and then everyone's on the same page. And there shouldn't be no scenarios, like you said, where you've got, stop, you can't come through, pedal cyclists and things like this. It's all preventable, and it's so very easy.
And really, those should be daily because, like I say, everyone's freelancers, and they have these things called dailies, where people just come in for a day, and they may literally only work on that film for that day.
It's like me now, Tom.
Yeah, and exactly. And so those people, I think, if you're like 3 weeks into a 4-month shoot, whatever it is, people go, "Well, everyone knows, we've been doing this for weeks."
Yeah,
but not everyone does.
No.
Sometimes your main person is off sick, so they brought in a dailies, and then that person has no idea, especially if they're junior dailies.
Yeah.
So there should really be a briefing at the beginning of every day, either from the HOD. So if it's location marshal who's a daily, then maybe the assistant location manager gives them a briefing about what's going on, or the first AD should give one to the whole set.
If there was a police presence on location, say for instance, scenario will be we've got SAs dressed as police, armed police, then what we would say to the police officers going on location is is before filming starts, is to get the SAs playing the role of police, get the armourer, and get the location managers and the one of the actual production team together, and the police officer is going to give a short briefing on what is expected. Okay, when members of the public see a police uniform, as far as they're concerned, they're a police officer. They don't know that person who's actually playing the role of police officer works for a very well-known supermarket or something like that. But in their eyes, they're a real police officer. So their behaviour should be exactly like what a police officer should be. So the police officers, the real police officers, will brief them all. This is the way you should behave, and obviously with the firearms, with the armor, and it gets everyone together. And then there shouldn't be any hidden surprises with maybe that police officer going off for a cheeky cigarette in full uniform with members of the public watching.
Yeah, and that's definitely something where there is departmental tension, where both the ADs and the locations, for example, if someone's in police uniform and they're not going for a take, they should then be covering that. So that could be with a full-body coat, or they should be stepped inside to a private space. And, I had production not too long ago where we had SAs in police uniform, and it was a hot day, 29 degrees and so on. And so SAs would be wanting, and we're filming outside, SAs would be wanting to take that coat off because obviously it's very hot. But if they're then wandering around the street as if they're a police officer, that's not okay, because the public can engage with them or, ask them a question or whatever. And it opens the can of worms. So it's something where thinking about where are you going to have the support space so you can step them off so that, if it is hot, they can be under fans, or they can take off the police uniform, or they can be in an air-cooled room or whatever. Because it's from the SA side, they're always going to be like, you tell them like, yeah, absolutely. And then they get hot, and then they don't think about it, and they unzip the coat, and you've now opened it all.
The main thing is a studio is a studio. Where we're here today, it's a studio. It's a closed set. Members of the public can't see what you do. You could have anything going on in here, no problem at all. What the problem is that productions forget that a location, a public location or a private location in full public view is not a studio. And they think they can do exactly the same things in a public place as they can do in a studio, which is really, really not the case. I mean, obviously, you can do those things, but there's a set rationale, and there's a way to conduct yourself. I mean, there was a huge film, I'm not going to say which production it was, a good few years ago, SA Armed Police, with a realistic imitation firearm, which is a RIF, which is a firearm defined by law, is that it's so realistic, you cannot determine it from a real firearm. So this is basically what we're dealing with here. He walks off set and decides to go to McDonald's, and obviously order himself. He ends up getting arrested. Obviously, he hasn't got the authority to carry the firearm in a public place. Hasn't got the authority to be in police uniform and impersonate a police officer. It's crazy. And I was, when I was in the police, it was trying to engage with supporting artists who play the role of police, because they do love playing police. They absolutely love it. I can understand that. You put the uniform on, and the minute you put that uniform on, you've gained that level of authority, and members of the public are going to see that. And what we used to find is that when we've got supporting artists dressed as police officers playing the role of police, and you've got real police officers on location, if, like your example you said, it's a hot day, I'm going to go off for a stroll, and when they were spotted by the real police officers, they never wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like to be spoken to by the real police officers, and it's trying to prevent that the fact is, and trying to get the message across, you're in police uniform. In the eyes of the members of the public, you are a real police officer, and you have to basically be a professional. And if you're told by a real police officer, come back on set, cover your uniform, then that's what you do. It's as simple as that. There's so many things that can go wrong, and you really, really, really have to think outside the box on location, regardless of police uniforms, firearms, nudity, all those examples I've said earlier. You really got to think outside the box.
Even things about where you put an easy up, where you put your kit, where you park a vehicle. There's so many things. When you're on location, you have a huge responsibility.
Exactly. I mean, a pavement, certain pavements are certain widths. And, you've got all these things as location managers to think about. And that's really your priorities. Can a pram get past? Can members of the public walk past? You've got to think about that. The DOP,
Can
first
someone in a
aid
wheelchair get past?
Exactly.
Because you'd be like, oh, it's fine, they'll step over. It's like, not everyone can do that.
But the HODs are not really, they've got so much on their plate. They want to try to get the shot. They're not bothered about that, but as location managers, you really have to take all those things. And obviously the environment, I used to say to productions that what you see in the daytime is not necessarily what's going to happen at night. These horror stories of gangs of people coming out and trying to extort money from productions. This is my location. you need to pay us a certain amount of money to continue filming, and production's paying it because they want to film. There's so many different elements to a location.
How should you handle that legally?
Well, you don't do it. I mean,
Yeah.
you call the police. I mean, if it's to say, if you feel like your life's been threatened or anyone's in danger, it's 999. If it's not something which is obviously urgent, it's a 101 situation. But really, you need to engage with these people and not be fooled by it. I mean, if someone's trying to say, listen, to continue filming for the rest of the evening, it's going to cost you £100, then you continue filming. And if they start obviously disrupting filming, and again, the response will determine which sort of phone number you're going to call. I mean, we had a huge film in the centre of London, and there was a very well-known business at the end of it, and they were at the end of the street, and they were this street's always used for filming. It's a lovely area in South London, and this business basically were saying to the production, you owe us a good few £1,000. We won't allow you to film here, and if you don't give us the money, then we're going to come and disrupt it. Obviously, the production asked us for advice, and we ended up having effective communication with both parties and advising both parties, and it went off with no problems at all. You can't, don't. I mean, as people that are coming into the industry, don't feel threatened by these people. Don't put yourself in danger. That's the main thing. Don't put any of your colleagues in danger. Take it on board. Communicate with these people as much as you possibly can, but there's only so much you can do. And if you feel like the police are needed to be involved, let the police know.
I was wondering if we could change tack slightly.
Yep.
And I know you've been to universities and spoken to students about working with the Metropolitan Police Unit. And I know when I was sort of starting out at, say, 18, 19, making films, and you're just making your own short films and you've not had any training whatsoever, what's the sort of advice you'd give to those, let's say teenagers, but anyone who's sort of new to filmmaking, has not worked professionally as a filmmaker, but wants to make films on the streets of London? They have no money, they have no knowledge, but they have a lot of enthusiasm. What would you advise them?
The industry is, first of all, it's a fantastic industry, as you know, and there's so many different departments, so many elements that you could apply your skills to. That's what I would first say, and obviously, be ambitious and creative. But with those two things, ambition and being creative, there becomes responsibility, and it's really being responsible. But I urge people. I mean, when I was doing these talks to colleges and universities in London across the home counties, is you don't want to scare these people off. It's all very well being a police officer, and it's like this as well. Is that when you're walking in there, never in uniform, never when there is to go in uniform, is breaking down those barriers with these young people and the police, because not everyone's going to have that like me talking to them. But I never had any issues with these young people. They always listened to what I had to say. But in answer to your question, Tom, is that to have that ambition and being creative, and anything is possible. Anything is possible.
To kind of highlight one of the things you said earlier about the scenarios where you can have police, you are okay if you are without a police presence, if you're worried about the cost of that as a young production, if you can work out how to film it in private land that is not in public view. So just it being on private land is not enough. So, for example, if you've got a school, that gives you permission, but then you can see through the gates or you can see from it, then you still are subject to those same requirements. But if you're filming inside a school hall on a day that it's closed, where the school has given you permission to film, you can then film your post-apocalyptic drama that has a, prop gun or whatever. Still tell the police that you're doing it, because it's always good to liaise. But on the whole, I would say, and I think you'd agree, if it's in private space and it's on public view, you're okay to shoot as you'd want to. Yeah,
it depends on the scenario. You mentioned obviously the post-apocalyptic, obviously with a firearm in a school, and in that sort of scenario, whether it's in London or outside London, you need to contact the police.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a firearm on location, and then obviously they especially inside the Met Police, they will take all the information from you as regards to location, call and wrap times, what sort of firearm is there, an armour on location, etc., etc., and they will issue a film weapon CAD for you, which covers you that CAD gets sent to the local police as well as the firearms units. And it's protecting you as well as the local authorities and the police. And if it's outside the Met Police, is to call 101. All right, call 101. Ask for the local authority, local police service for where your location is. But in generally speaking, if you're say for instance in a school, it's closed, or in someone's private residence, and you've got someone dressed as a police officer, they're all staying inside the actual location, never come out, then that's absolutely fine. And we was, as a part of the actual process, going back to Tom's question about talking to students, it was to highlight those scenarios. You're inside someone's house, then stay inside the house, and we would advise you, and we would tell you the consequences if you should decide to ignore what we're saying and come out, then this is the likelihood sort of reaction you're going to get from the police. And
that was one of the recent job I did earlier this year. We had some filming inside a council estate, and in story, a young man has been killed, and the police are notifying his mother about it, and his kind of ghost is wandering through the hallway, and we were able to have the police officers be inside the flat, the doors be closed, the curtains drawn so the public never see. And one of the responsibilities of us and the ADs was basically to man the door so that the extras, when they're in uniform, are only ever in the flat. And so if they want to come out, they then have to take off that police uniform, and then they can go for their cigarette break or whatever. Because, as I say, people will forget that they'll want to just, I just wander to the end of the hall and I'll just step outside and get some fresh air. And it's like building those safeguards, because as soon as they step outside and the public then can see someone in a police uniform, and you don't have a police officer there on set with you that day, you've gone from fine to breaking the law.
Well, exactly. And it's like I've said on quite a few occasions now, it's thinking outside the box. You've really got to think of all different angles of the location and really what you're doing. And as we said, there's only one Met Police film unit. There's no other police service film unit in the UK. So, for instance, a scenario where you've got someone dressed as a sporting artist, dressed as a police officer in Buckinghamshire or wherever it may be, is to still contact the local police 101 or submit. Well, I would still call 101, but also submit their online application form. Tell them exactly what you do to cover yourself. Because, as I said, if you are dressed as a police officer, you are committing the offence of impersonating a police officer. Also, to have police equipment is an offence. And whatever, if you are an SA, listen to this. If you've got a friction lock baton, you're not authorised to have a friction lock baton. That is a made offensive weapon and should only really be supplied by respective armourers. But just a few tips, as a production. If police are not on location, as in real police officers not on location, is to the SA to cover up the top half of the uniform in between takes. If they've got a hat, to take it off. And it's those little things really that you can really reassure members of the public and keep your production safe by doing those little things.
And you have to it's what's interesting is, obviously, if you look like you're committing a crime, even if it's for a film, you need to do everything you can to prevent the public, because they will just call the police. Like, I've just seen someone break into a house with a gun. Exactly. Or I'm seeing someone in a school with a gun, even if it's on a Saturday and you're like, what's going on? They'll call the police. And I guess if you've reported it to the police and you have all the permissions, that then when they get that report in, they can go, well, we know what that's for.
Exactly.
And then they don't have to send an armed police.
Well, that's
unit.
right. It's if you're filming with a firearm and you're at a location, you've set up a film weapon CAD already, then instead of if a member of the public sees it, gives the control of the location, then that location should flag up on the system to say, hold on a minute, there's a CAD on already. There's no need to send an armed response. We will send a response, but it might be an unmarked car just to do a quick drive-by, just to see how things are going and say, okay, yeah, we can confirm this, that it's actually filming. In London, obviously I can only comment in London because obviously that's what I was responsible for, is that we were putting on average around about 4 or 5 film weapon CADs on a day. So it just shows you really the amount of times of when productions are filming with firearms or weapons. And the percentage of when things go wrong, around about 1 or 2% a year. And that's only because the productions haven't engaged with us. And then when we've actually noticed that it's obviously gone wrong, we've told them what the situation is. And this is again going back to the education of talking to students and getting that message out there, is that, you know, how serious it will be. I mean, there was that scenario outside an actual college where some students a few years ago, it was in the papers. There's obviously two students had a BB gun, black BB gun, filming outside, and unfortunately they didn't tell anybody, didn't even tell their peers. And member of the public saw it and rightly called police. And then these poor police officers have to drive halfway across London on a blue light run, putting people in danger and themselves in danger by doing so. And then having to deal with these two unfortunate youths by pointing live firearms. And if they don't get the response they want, is then to make a decision, split-second decision that they have. I feel so sorry for my colleagues, the firearms officers, that what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. They've got that split-second decision of what to make, and the last thing they want to do is end up taking a young kid's life because they're filming with a BB gun.
And they didn't tell anyone.
And they didn't tell anybody. And those sort of scenarios, if they would have got in touch with me or my colleague Danny at the time at the film unit, say, listen to what we want to do, I would have told them what they need to do, and the fact that they can't do what they do, and this is but we'll come up with a viable alternative to keep their filming safe.
Are there resources for aspiring or current filmmakers as to how to be safe and involve the police in their process, or there's somewhere they can go to learn these things or listen to this podcast?
Well, yeah, definitely listen to the podcast. Danny Elliott of the PC, so obviously my best buddy. Hi, Danny. He's obviously running a film unit now. He's continuing the education side of things, going out to colleges and universities across London. There's a wealth of information out there as well. Obviously, the Met Police have protocols. They used to be called guidelines, but they're now called protocols, the well-known American terminology, to filming on location as well as filming on the move. And they're open source, so you can go online and you can read those, and they're fantastic documents which will tell aspiring people as well as people that have been in the industry a long, long time of what you can and can't do. There is law applied to those guidelines, but a lot of it is common sense, really. And as I said, you don't get it anywhere else in the UK.
Yeah, and we'll include those guidelines in the show notes, so people listening to the episode can just click and.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And we'll draw this to a close soon. And it's been absolutely amazing, Steve. Very quickly, then, what are you now doing with your consultancy? Is that part of what you do? Is that you're carrying on that education, or? Yes.
I mean, obviously now I work for myself. Never done that before. I've always worked for somebody, and I'm finding it really the transition into freelancing as such as an education. I now head up my own business, Steve Dixon, specialist media consultant. It's more or less, doing exactly the same thing as when I was an actual police officer, but from a private capacity. So my mantra is that anything is possible. Your scenarios in a public place or in a private place in full public view are achievable, but with the correct planning and implementation. And then really just what I do is that my consultancy and advising productions on what you can and you shouldn't do. Going on recce's with productions. I'm actually, next week I've got a couple of recce's that I'm on. We're filming with drones in really high profile areas. And it's working with the productions and the consultancy capacity to advise them on what can and what can't be achieved.
And how has the kind of invention of drones affected filming?
Massively. I mean, over the years, since 2014, when I've been in a unit, they were scowled upon. Anyone who mentioned a drone, the local authority would just basically more or less put the phone down on you. But it's massively evolved now. I think the turning point was the Jack Ryan shoot that we did in Leicester Square with Alex Gladstone, obviously location manager. We closed off Leicester Square, and we had this huge drone hovering above. Whilst we had all these scenes going on, we had sniper rifles, and as I said, Leicester Square. And this was on a normal day. Yes, we closed it off, but the surroundings were all going on as normal. You got tourist buses going past, and to have the professionalism of a shoot like that, working with the local authority, working with all the local businesses, working with the police, myself, and to make that happen in a public place is phenomenal. But obviously going back to the drones, they're a big part of filming, not just in London but across the UK. And there are some huge drone companies now which are providing a fantastic service, and they're very, very pro in making things safe, and advising productions on best practice.
And so how would a production get permission to film with a drone?
Well, first and foremost is obviously for them, if they want to film with a drone, is to contact a licensed drone operator. There's loads of them around. You've got your big companies and you've got your smaller freelancing sort of people that provide that as well. The size of the drone is a big factor. In the eyes of the law, a drone which is 250 grams and below, which is a very small drone, technically speaking, you can fly that really without any permissions whatsoever. But when I was in the police, and I still advise this now, it's always best to contact the local authority regardless of your drone size. Okay, so find a location, work with your drone operator, speak to the local authority to let them know what you want to do, your takeoff and landing zones, the flight route. Is there a spotter? Obviously, whilst you've got the drone obviously up in the air, and obviously with the police. And if you're filming in London, and also advise if you're doing this outside, is that just a spin-off with the film weapon CAD, is that the Met Police filming it will issue you a film drone CAD. So if you're filming outside restricted airspace, and there are certain elements of London which is restricted airspace, which is dealt with by another department, then the Met Police filming it will take all your information, your drone details, the drone operator's details, location, times, etc., altitude, and they'll issue a film drone CAD that then gets sent to the local production and the location manager, but also the National Police Air Service. So the helicopter knows that there's a drone flying at the location. It's just reinforcing all that information, just so there's no hidden surprises. Because as we've mentioned this already, people will see what they want to see, and they will make their own mind up as to what it is. There's a drone flying here. What's going on? I'm going to call police. But if they do call police, in London especially, then there should be something on there to actually counter that information, that intelligence, to say, it's okay, it's filming, and this is what they're doing.
And also it could cause an awful accident. If that all goes terribly wrong, it's like we said earlier, it's just not worth it.
It's just not worth it. There's so many different elements that you need to think about: drones, guns, nudity, violence. If you want to film in any of these sort of scenes, you've got to really think outside the box, and you've got to picture in the bigger picture.
So obviously you said productions can book you as a consultant,
Yep.
and you can work with them. Do you stay with them on the course of the whole film if they've hired you for that period, or you just coming in on a bit by bit basis?
You mentioned dailies, that thing which was alien to me before I was in the police, but it's obviously something that I'm used to now. They can book me whenever they want. As I say, I'm working with quite a few productions at the moment. I'm very, very grateful, and obviously, again, I thank you very much for the support on that. Is that they will have me coming on whenever they need me, and I'm happy for that. Obviously, I've got my website, obviously stevedixonsmc.com, and obviously it's got a list of sort of scenarios of when I'm available, what I can actually offer productions. And I think I've still got a lot to offer.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful really to location managers that I've worked with over the years while I was in the Met Police, who encouraged me to do this. And I'm really happy that I am. And one thing I will mention is that I have to say that one of my most difficult and favourite productions that I've ever worked with is Lost in London, with Woody Harrelson and Owen Wilson. It's the only live stream movie been filmed in London, and that was a huge challenge that we had back in 2017, I think it was. Woody was absolutely brilliant, and obviously working with him was but as I said, it's anything is possible. A live stream movie in a live environment with members of the public going about their business, and we managed to film with police, and Woody driving around and getting arrested. It was absolutely amazing.
And if educational bodies are listening to this, they can book you as well. If they come
Yes.
in and give talks to their students. And
Yep.
sort of-
Back in January this year, I did a talk to the assistant location managers course.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. So yes, I can still continue that. If you want me to talk about the do's and don'ts of what to do in filming in London and across the UK, I'm here.
And I think for my final question, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received: never give up, really, and anything is possible. I mean, being a police officer for over 20 odd years, it's having that confidence really to be able to apply yourself. It's not easy going into the police, especially back that time, back in the early 2000s as well. It wasn't an easy time, especially I'm not the tallest chap, and obviously everyone has that perception of really tall, beefy, huge police officers. So I would say that if you want something and you want to do it, then go for it, regardless of what the hurdles and the obstacles that might be there. Then anything is possible. Really, anything is possible. I'm testament to that. I mean, I managed to survive 23 years in the Met Police. So yeah,
That's awesome. And thank you so much for coming and talking to us today.
thank you ever so much for having me. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you.